We're just kicking things off here. So we're going to do introductions real quick and then we'll get into the content. So I'm Bridget Drummond, Family Engagement Commissioner for the Minnesota PTA. This is my first year on the board. And so I've been kind of learning and thinking about what Family Engagement Commissioner means and how to help out our chapters across the state with being more involved with getting families involved in their PTAs, and diversity inclusion is a big part of it. And so I look to my friends over at the Minnesota Department of Education that do this for a full-time job and have a lot more experience and knowledge about the topic. And so it seemed like a good kind of crossover between what PTA is trying to strive for and what also the Department of Education is trying to bring to the schools. So yeah, I'll hand it over to our Department of Education SMEs.
Well, I can kick things off here quickly, I hope. My name is Cindy Ward Thompson. I am the Title I Part A program specialist here at MDE, which is a really cool title to be. You know, it's almost like having a number for a name, which is also really cool. Jackie, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Good morning. I'm Jackie Blagsvedt. Let's see here. I specialize in full service community schools and family and community engagement, and I work in the office of, now we are a division of public engagement. So I think those are some pretty cool things too, and I'm excited to be here, and especially excited to be in a space and talking to families and parents, which, you know, generally I'm more familiar and more practiced in talking to teachers, educators, administrators. So this is just so exciting to be talking to families. And Saadia?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Saadia Mohamed, and I am also at the Public Engagement Division as our multilingual support and outreach specialist. So same thing, working on a lot of family and community engagement work, really highlighting language access and those kinds of things. So very excited to be a part of this session with you all as well. And yeah, thank you.
All right.
And I'm sorry, I'm dealing with a barking dog right now. So can one of you lovely individuals handle the commitments to equity while I shut my door?
I sure can. At the Department of Education, we have our 10 Minnesota commitments to equity, and these are commitments MDE has made to prioritize equity across Minnesota in education spaces. So for family and community engagement, we wanted to highlight that we really think it goes hand in hand with starting from within, focusing on leadership, diversity, and inclusion within also involves our families and students. And then when we go local, we engage and develop leaders at all levels, and we empower community partners in our continuous improvement work. And when we value people, we are focusing on teachers, leaders, families, and we develop the people that we have in our communities. And we ensure equitable access to the best teachers for our students. And when we improve conditions for learning, we focus on school culture, climate, and social emotional development. We connect teaching to the experience, assets, and needs of students and families. And there we go.
We can go ahead and get started with our land acknowledgement. So before we begin, out of our abundance of respect for this beautiful land on which we all live and work and its original people, I'd like to offer the following land acknowledgement. The Department of Education respectfully acknowledges that the land now known as Minnesota is the ancestral lands of Dakota and Anishinaabe people, and we pay our respect to these stewards, both past and present. Thank you. And I know we just introduced ourselves, but here's our contact informations as well. And we'll have it at the end of the session as well.
And then we have our agenda is a brief introduction, a brief history of ESSA, overview of the titles, and all of the ESSA programs, and what does ESSA have to say about parental involvement or family engagement. We will be reflecting on our current understandings, values, beliefs around family and community engagement. What's even more important than like our model and the elements of our model is really how we approach the topic of engaging families. So our values, beliefs, and understandings. And then we will introduce MDE's family engagement model to support schools, and we will have time for reflection and questions.
All right, so just by way of introduction to everyone, please in the chat, if you could, everybody, including PTA folks, please put your name, one hope you have for today's session, and the school or school districts your children attend or that you work with. You can put all if you want to. So if you can access the chat. Ooh, I like this. I'm so far having a really bad day with spilling. I'm 0 for 2 right now on both coffee and water. So hopefully I can make it through the meeting without being 0 for 3. All right. And I see Jackie did it, and I did it, and Bridget did it. Oh, we have another one. Woohoo. St. Paul area schools. Great. Nice. Great. Well, thank you. All right.
It might be taking some time for me to catch up to when the slides change over, but we have some goals for us today. So we'll be discussing the 7 elements of the family and community engagement model, and kind of trying to connect that family and community engagement model is what MDE has created to communicate to schools what we expect that they do in the course of their efforts to engage families and communities. And so how can we connect what we have communicated to schools with what PTAs could be doing to support their school and also support the families that work with the PTAs, or partner with the PTAs. So this is just really going to be an exciting opportunity for us. We'll be, if we have a chance, if we have time for this, we will talk about the different FACE stages. Family and community engagement is FACE. Stages of development that schools can transition through as they become true partners for families and communities. And then we will be definitely learning about the opportunities that Title I schools offer to build family and community engagement.
Thank you. Okay, so I get to talk a little bit about my baby over here in Title I land, Title I Part A. And this has a very old past, very old being that it's older than me. It's not like ancient or anything. But in 1965, that's a picture of President Johnson signing the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. This act came out of the Civil Rights Movement. So do you remember everybody out marching in the street because they wanted equity, well, equality. They wanted our kids who are not very well off to have the same opportunities as those who were well off. They wanted a lot of things. And civil rights was a big deal, still is. And Title I and the Elementary and Secondary Education Act was the federal government's response to what the people had asked for, at least one of them. So the Elementary and Secondary Education Act was signed into law because they wanted full educational opportunity as our first national goal. They wanted everybody, and I say they because I wasn't around in 65, not even thought of at that point. But people believed that by getting a good education, we could equalize the playing field. We could allow our kids from disadvantaged, and I'm going to use that word because that was a word that we used in 1965, students to excel and to do well. And when it started, you have school districts and schools from low-income areas. Now all of a sudden they have grants for textbooks, library books, special education centers, scholarships for students to go to college for the first time. And there were federal grants to state agencies to improve the quality of education. And that's where Title I fits in. So if you fast forward to now, we don't really think about it as education for the disadvantaged, which Title I Part A still in statute as education for the disadvantaged. But things look different. It was most recently reauthorized in 2015. Obama signed it into action this time. And education looks a whole lot different now than it did in 1965. Did you see that picture? Boy, let me see if I can go back to it. Probably not. But anyway, if you noticed in that picture, it was a whole bunch of mostly men. I think predominantly, if not all white people standing around making decisions about education. That looks different today. Education looks different today. Who we need to involve shouldn't look different, but it now is becoming more of a priority. Okay, so ESEA, at least today, this didn't always look like this. We have a lot of different titles. Title I Part A is the big one, and that's Programs and Services for the Disadvantaged. You also have Title I Part C, which is Migrant Education. Title I Part D, which is our delinquent facilities, so for students who have been adjudicated. Title I Part G, Advanced Placement. Ooh, wait a minute. Oh my goodness, you can do advanced placement too? That qualifies? Yeah. Because our students who are lower income doesn't mean they're any less capable of doing anything else. So advanced placement and opportunities to excel are super important, right? Just like for any other student. Title II is your adults, your teacher and principal quality. Title III are English language learners, so funding to support our English learners. Title IV, I call it the fun money. Student support and engagement funds, extra funding for like communities, learning centers. Title V is our rural education programs. If you know REAP or SRSA, SLSA, those are out of Title V. Title VI is our Indian education. Title IX, homeless. So our McKinney-Vento. So there's a whole bunch of different, and you're probably saying, wow, where's Title I Part B? Yes, there is a Title I Part B. There are different sections that aren't listed here, but there's a lot in this list you probably don't care about, but you probably care about those less. So there's things in here for like testing and assessments that aren't covered in my list here, but those are the important ones. For us people. So if a school is getting Title I Part A, and most elementary schools do, almost all the districts in the state receive Title I Part A, not all completely. If they don't, it's usually because they're very, very small, like they have less than 35 students for the district, which incidentally doesn't necessarily mean it's a charter school. There is a public school district in Minnesota, a traditional district that just has really, really low enrollment. Or the community is just super, super affluent. And if you're thinking of a community right now as, wow, this one's really affluent, I bet they don't get Title I Part A. I bet they do. I bet they do. So your Minnetonkas, your Eden Prairie, yep, they have plenty of Title I funds. Yep. So as far as family engagement goes, if a school is receiving Title I Part A, the school district, or charter school in this case, they have some obligations to work with families and this is kind of listed here. First of all, they have to develop a written parent and family engagement policy with the parents involved in the creation of the document. So the parents actually have to sit down and talk to them and draft it and say, this isn't okay and that isn't okay. And if schools are ever talking to you about, or talking to somebody about a template for this, there isn't one. Why? Because it needs to be done. How often does the policy need to be drafted? It says, it isn't necessarily an annual requirement. I do believe it says it's got some sort of really weird language that's slipping my mind right now in statute, something along the language of often or as needed. How many parents are required to be involved? There's no specific number that I've seen. But it says parents with an S at the end, not parent. And there's not even the little cute little brackets around the S, so it means to me at least 2. And when I look at districts like Minneapolis or St. Paul, I usually see 10, 12 on the list. So, because they'll actually list out which parents and family members were involved in it. And that's the people drafting it, because they also need to get support and feedback from more parents than just the ones that are involved in drafting the plan. Is it for the whole district? Great question. So they actually need a parent and family engagement policy, one for the district. You can call it a plan or a policy. Federal language says it's a policy. We usually call it a plan, because I think of a policy as being something board approved, and you don't necessarily want to redo that every year. But it's more like a plan than a policy, at least here in Minnesota. And there should be one for the school and one for the district. Anyway, the school is also required to build the school's capacity to engage families. So they need to be growing in their ability to work with families. They're also required to evaluate the family engagement practices and policies. That does need to be done yearly. And if it's a district that is receiving $500,000 or more in title funds, they have to set aside at least 1% for family engagement. Now, does that sound like a lot? No. Do most districts spend more than that? Yes. Another great question. How is the evaluation done? It really varies from district to district, but they need family feedback. So a lot of people do surveys or roundtables, or they bring in family members to go through materials, but survey is usually part of it. Okay. They also will look at data, right? How many families are coming to this event, that event, this other event? How are people rating this? How many people are interacting with our families? How many people are using our new app with language support to communicate with our families? Yeah, whatever it happens to be. Okay. Now, did I go to the next slide? No. Okay. If a school is funded by Title I Part A, yep, they need to develop that policy. So this is school level. The last one was district level. So school level, they need to have that school-based family engagement plan. The parents need to agree with it, and it needs to describe how the school is going to carry out those family engagement activities. They must have an annual meeting for families. It doesn't need to be in person. It could be virtual. And it needs to explain the program and the rights of parents to be involved. So if you haven't heard anything from your school about this, you might want to talk to them. If they have a Title I, if they get Title I funding, not everybody does. Develop a school-based written family engagement policy. Did I just do that? Do I have that there twice? Holy cow, I do. I have both of there twice. That's pretty gifted of me. What did I, oh wait, no. Does it show it there twice? But it doesn't. This is so weird. Sorry, everybody. Anyway, gotta have something wrong with your PowerPoint, otherwise you didn't do it right, right? All right. I don't know how I did that or what I'm missing for 3 and 4. All right, so for families, as far as getting involved with this, most of the schools need families to help draft the policies, provide feedback, explore the needs, prioritize options, evaluate programs. They need family input. and families to work together with schools to make things better. Because with Title I, honestly and truthfully, if the school can identify it as a need, you can fund fixing it. So if a school says, and that includes families, say, wow, the biggest obstacle is my kids don't feel safe on the way to school for the bus. Okay, we can help with that. If your biggest obstacle is to students being successful, attendance, well, let's start up a whole attendance initiative. If the biggest obstacles to education might be kids needing to experience real life uses of what they're learning in school, great, let's build in this great curriculum. And it's kind of the sky is the limit with Title I. If you have a school-wide program, especially as far as meeting the needs of kids, what do you need to do to be successful? And I love seeing schools think out of the box, and I love seeing schools that are asking me, can they fund 30 canoes, a trailer, and paddles and life jackets for their kids? Yeah, absolutely. If you can tie it to academic needs or school needs, absolutely.
There's a couple questions in the comments.
Oh,
So
another one that I missed. Okay.
if they need to offer flexible times, do they need to offer multiple meetings? Maybe, but I think the other thing there is like the childcare support that could be offered during those meeting times. And that's where, there's a really good like kind of synergy between, your PTA meeting, combining it with a family engagement, or a PTA event, combining it with Title I family engagement activity, where then that childcare could be paid for through Title I funds to let more
Yep.
parents and more families come to your combined event.
Yeah. So the annual meeting, it is called an annual meeting. You could do more than one if you wanted to. It does need to be offered at a time that families can make it. It does need to be flexible. They don't necessarily need to offer it more than once, but good schools do. And that's a lot of, I just say best practice, right? If you're noticing that you're not getting, at your Title I meeting, you're not getting people to show up on a Monday at 4 p.m. Well, maybe Monday at 4 p.m. doesn't work for people. If you've got it scheduled, and I know it was kind of interesting, there was a district in southern Minnesota that started scheduling their annual meeting at, I think it was 2 a.m. Now, that makes 0 sense, maybe, but most of the families were working at this specific shift, and having it happen at 2 a.m. worked. So they didn't just do it at 2 a.m. They had that and something else. So, whatever works for the communities to get people out. Also, it doesn't need to be held at the school. So sometimes holding it at a community partner organization location, or, someplace a little bit of fun. I laughed, one of them, well, okay, I'm not going to give that example because it's probably like questionable, so never mind. But yeah, they held it at the bingo hall. It wasn't playing bingo, but they held it there because they had enough space for people to sit down in comfortable places, and they had soda, so life was good. Okay, so the question, do these Title I funds get budgeted out by the school board? So families need to attend the board meetings to express their ideas for the spending. They shouldn't be. So the Title I funds, the only thing done at the district level is the district decides out of a pot of money, and given a whole bunch of specific rules, the district will decide which schools they're going to fund. So there's a lot of rules to it. Like any school that has over 75% students who qualify for educational benefits has to be funded. And there's some other rules about like the percentage, and I'm not going to get into that because it's a whole, that could be a session all by itself. But the family, the school, the district shouldn't be budgeting for the school though. They should be saying, you're going to be funded, and as being funded, you're going to get this allocation. That's not decided by the district either. They decide who's going to be funded, and there's kind of an allocation that works out with the school then by the number of students that qualify for benefits. And then the school should be doing the budgeting of deciding how they're going to spend that money. And that is something parents and family members can be and should be involved in. Okay, what I mean by the school is Well, that's whoever's doing your Title I budget. So is it principals and teachers? It's usually a leadership committee, usually a Title I committee, and yes, it should have family members on it or parents on it. Actually, one of the questions in the Title I application is, did you involve families in the budget for Title I? And if they check no, I can deny it. So it's required. All right. Uh-oh, now I'm in trouble. So I can click this.
Did you share your sound when you started? Like click that or
Or maybe stop sharing and then share again. And then there should be a checkbox, I think, that says include audio.
I think we're gonna have to skip the
Okay.
and I'll just talk through it because we're losing some time here. So should I share my slides?
I have it here.
Oh, perfect.
It pulled up for me.
While you guys are talking about that, I see another question here I missed, which is, are interpreters required at the meetings? It is required to have language access, so everybody should be able to understand. So I'm going to go with a yes. You do need to have interpreters. You need to have language access for anybody, so that they can understand what's going on. It doesn't really do much good to invite people to meetings and then be like, hey, good luck understanding that. Yes, you can use Title I funds for that. You're not required to use Title I funds, you just need to do it. But yeah, and actually one of the things that makes me very excited is when I see minutes come out from the annual meeting in 5 different languages. That just honestly warms my heart.
Sure. Okay, can you see my Harvard X screen?
Yes.
Okay, I did click share my sound, so I'm gonna try this.
When Ann Henderson and I co-authored the book Beyond the Bake Sale, we decided to focus an early chapter on the values and the beliefs necessary to build strong, lasting partnerships between home and school. We learned from school leaders who were skilled in the area of family engagement that it took knowledge, skill, but also a certain disposition and set of values to do this work well. Using what we learned from these practitioners, we identified 4 core beliefs necessary to cultivate partnerships. First, all families have dreams for their children and want the best for them. It is vital for educators to understand that families who send their children to them each day want their children to succeed in school and in life. Yes, families might say or do things that lead us to think otherwise, but these actions and behaviors are often triggered by stressful factors in their lives and do not reflect their innermost feelings about the importance of education and their desire for their children to become happy and successful adults. Second, all families have the capacity to support their children's learning. Regardless of how little or how much formal education they may have, or what languages they may speak, all families contribute to their children's learning. Families' knowledge, talents, and life experiences give them plenty of capacity for assisting their children with school skills, and practitioners need all that information to design the best learning opportunities for those children. Families have knowledge that should be respected, utilized, and developed by school staff. The expression, parents are their children's first teachers, is so widely used it's almost a cliche. If we believe it, we need to view and treat parents as the experts that they are. Third, parents and school staff should be equal partners. All stakeholders supporting children's development should have equal status, value, and responsibility. That means starting from the premise that everyone has something to offer and that everyone should get something positive out of the relationship. And finally, The responsibility for building and sustaining partnerships between school, home, and the community rests primarily with school staff, especially school leaders. Now, you might see a contradiction between this and the belief in equal partners. If we're equal partners, why does this responsibility rest with school staff? Well, as mentioned by Kaya Henderson, Nancy Hill, and Sue Hung, many families see schools as powerful and forbidding institutions. The school leader and staff must take the first step, especially when families already feel intimidated. Certainly, there is a responsibility on both sides, and families must connect with teachers and other school staff on behalf of their children. Everyone who works in the school, especially the school leader, must walk the walk, not just talk the talk, of mutual partnership. This means exhibiting a real passion for partnership. For the practitioners in this audience, do these core beliefs resonate with you? Which ones push you out of your comfort zone? For the parents and other caregivers, what has your experience been? Do these feel fundamental to you? Would you add anything else? As you continue on your journey, I hope these core beliefs guide you along the way.
Okay. And so I would be curious, as parents, would you add anything else to those 4 core beliefs? And her other question, what has been your experience? I think that would be really interesting, parents, if you wanted to add anything in the chat box. Let's see. I know that we have another. I'm going to pull up my chat here. Since I am presenting my screen, I can't see you all, which is, Cindy, you had mentioned that too. And that's a little bit disconcerting when you're presenting to people and can't see their faces. But let's see. The next slide, is that the link that you pasted in there? Saadia, is this next one? Let me see if that's it.
No,
Nope.
that was the first one. Did you want me to do the second one too? I can do that.
Sure. Otherwise, I can pull it up here. I wonder if I got it. Let's see here.
I also put it in the chat.
You did? Okay, I'll grab it from the chat. That's a little easier. PowerPoint is really hard to click on links with. There it is. And okay, this one is in Vimeo, and this is I am so excited that we have this video for you all today, because it is a mother, Zakia Ansari, and she is talking about her experience of being asked to be a part of the I don't know if it was like the parent advisory committee or if it was a PTA at her school, but she was asked.
PTA.
It was her PTA. She was being a part of it and was kind of discouraged, told to expect not very much. So let's hear from her. Excuse me, because it's eye-opening to hear about her experience.
Before you start that, I know that there is a comment in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Let me see if I can get there.
Yeah, and I can
Okay.
I can talk about that a little bit. So having the PTA plan presented during a PTA meeting wouldn't be something that Title I could cover, because it's specifically a PTA meeting. So it would be a kind of a different group. If it was the Title I meeting, it could be, it would just be a little bit of a difference. So that would be why they were told that they couldn't use Title I for interpreters at the PTA meeting itself. But as far as the administration, I'd love to have some great ideas on making sure that families here feel heard by administration. The interesting thing to me is, like, I come from, most of my work is with school superintendents and principals. around Title I. And what I hear from them is we really want our parents involved. We really want our families involved, and they don't seem interested. I mean, we offer them food, we offer them all this other stuff to come, and they just don't show up. To which I would say, how are you asking them? That seems to me like they have some learning to do. And it seems to me like the families could provide some of that learning. So I guess my big thing is just to make sure that they know that you're involved, that you're interested, and and that can be really hard if you've got people who just genuinely don't seem interested. But I don't know. I was also at a PACER meeting. I don't know if you know what PACER is. But they were talking about basically how to get families. They did a training on how families can get, how families can actually work with administration, as far as like, hey, you know, how can we volunteer? How can we help out? Kind of worming ways into it. And I hate that you have to do that sometimes, but realistically, it should just be a, hey, I'm open. I'd love to talk to you. Hopefully that would be all it would take.
I agree. And then I want to go back a little bit to the to what Dawn had said about how the school presents at a PTA meeting about the school improvement plan, but tells the PTA that the PTA should pay for the interpreters. Cindy, do you, I don't know, maybe if I was thinking of a thought and didn't hear you say this, but I'm curious if there is guidance around, because the school is presenting on it to the community.
Yeah, so
Right.
it wouldn't be though it was presented to the PTA, which is a different little, if it was the community or if other people were invited, then it might open up the ability to use Title I funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is a thing. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that would be a thing, at least for, I mean, they could use other funds for it, but just not Title I.
Just
I
not
was kind
Title
of reading it as they were using that PTA space and time for their messaging. So it feels like then they would be kind of, you know, providing the translation to complete, you know, all the requirements for their Title I meeting. They're just using the PTA time and space that's set aside for their topic.
If they're doing that, that's really, if
Because I mean, I guess
everybody in the school
yeah.
is involved, because it shouldn't just be, well, I guess I
Well,
don't know
and
too much about
but
parent
like
PTA
PTA
anymore, but
meetings, yeah,
it should
we
be
don't,
like family members and community members should be welcome. And if that's
yeah,
the case, then absolutely that could be the part of the annual meeting or something, and then they could use Title I funds for it. But if
yeah,
you're saying, well, it was a PTA meeting and we had them come and present, then it would be different.
right,
Make sense?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But the P, I
We are
mean,
asked,
go ahead.
the administrators ask the PTA, can we present about Title I and about SCIP at the PTA meeting? So it's not that we're asking them to do that, it's that they are asking us
Yeah,
to do that.
Great. And then you can say, yes, you can, but you need to provide the interpreters.
yeah.
Because it does no good if they don't, and I guess I don't know what the funding looks like at your school for ability to get interpreters, because it can be pretty expensive.
It can, and it can, but to me, it seems like it's worth the money.
Absolutely.
And
yeah. Otherwise, you're basically telling a huge
Right.
group of people that you're not welcome. Go
Right.
away.
Right.
That's
And
wrong. Those are the people that you need to come in. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Imperative, super important. And yeah, finding a funding mechanism for that is important. And if that's how they're doing their share out, then they need to provide the interpreters. I would agree.
And they're also saying, well, okay, we'll provide the interpreter, like we'll pay for them if families sign up ahead of time to say that they will be there. And to which I have pushed back on to say that is putting the responsibility on a group of families that are already having a lot on their plate. So my thought is that you should provide the interpreters just you should.
So they are also required to have those family engagement plans and the title plans in a language that the families can read and understand. And it doesn't need to be the whole document, but it needs to be something that they can share out with families so that they understand what's going on in the different languages. I might push back at them and ask them to bring those with, because I bet they don't have them. Ooh, that sounded mean. I don't know. I guess I didn't read which district you were in. Some of them do better than others, but I mean, I personally would ask them to make sure to have those documents available. And I know some districts do a really good job and some do not. And I don't know how many different languages you're talking about, because it can be, if you're saying, oh, we've got one student's family who speaks Oromo, and that person may or may not be there, spending $400 for an interpreter when you're not sure if the family will come or not could be difficult. Yeah, 3 languages. I guess
There are more than that, but
yeah.
3 covers quite a few.
Yeah, and that's awesome. I think or even have separate language settings. I don't know how you do the interpreters. I see a lot of people do those earpieces now. So it's going specifically from that language into the earpieces, so you're only listening to the language that you speak. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, but that's a lot of interpreters needed, or Google Translate. I don't know, whatever works for you.
Thank you.
Good luck. That is really important. That language access is absolutely key, because our families can't communicate with the schools if they don't understand what's being said and they can't say anything back.
Mhm. And did I just got a message from my son's school, speaking of family engagement and communication. I'm gonna need to go pick him up. He's not feeling well, but I might have missed a little piece here. There was a question in the chat box that says, everyone in the school is part of the PTA though, right? And so did we talk about that?
No, we didn't. So
Uh,
anyone can be welcome to your PTA meetings. There is a membership component to the PTA. So to be in good standing, and Amber has much better definition of all of this, but in order to be like in good standing from a PTA perspective, you need minimum of 20 members, and then you have to remit those dues and members to the Minnesota PTA, and then that gets rolled up to the national PTA. So anyone can come to your PTA meetings. Like, there's definitely not a invite list that we're telling you to send out and not send out to certain people. But in order to be voting and have, certain rights as a member, they have to have the paid membership. And you can offer scholarships, for members and things like that. But from a PTA perspective, a true member is a paid member, and anyone can be invited.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And then I want to provide the other side of that. So from a school's perspective, a PTA is a partner, but the school does not have, the school administration does not, because a PTA is I think a 501c3, is that correct?
Mhm.
Or a separate entity, its own organization. The school doesn't have authority to tell the PTA what they must do. And so for that reason, the school, with the ESSA funds and with the ways that they're required in other programs as well, it's not only Title I funds that have family and community engagement requirements in them, but the school is required to have ways that families can tell the school what they need and what they expect, and what they think, right? To have a democracy, right? To be able to be democratically included in education decisions. So there is something that I could show you once we get a little further into the presentation. I'm a little bit worried about our time though. We have about 7 minutes left. So I'm trying to think. We have 7 elements to get through. We have this incredible video that I really do want to show. Do we have
You know, maybe we could do the link to the 7 elements, because we've got a lot of really good information online about that, and I think showing that video would be a really good thing.
okay, thank you. I think so too. I think the
Okay.
7 elements are like written about really well and everything. So let's go with this video, and it really feels like we can talk about a follow-up, a 102 to this this whole topic that we've introduced today. So let's hear from this parent. All right.
I was always engaged in my children's education, but sat at the back of PTA meetings as opposed to being in the front and engaging in conversation. Thought I'd take it on and figured I'll try it, and was elected as part of the PTA. And the first time going into that space, being all excited and happy to participate, one of the parents who had been on the board previously said, "I don't know why you're excited. You're never going to get any parents to come out." And I thought, whoa, that's not exactly the welcoming I was expecting. And so it went from, 5 people at a PTA meeting or 15 people to 135 people at a PTA meeting. It went from 5 parents volunteering in the school as a learning leader to having 30 parents where you couldn't tell which were the parents and which were the educators. I knock up against the stereotypes of not just brown parents, but the white community who thinks that Black and brown parents and young people don't care about the education that they are receiving. And so many times I fall into spaces and you're so articulate. You know so much. It's so great. And I don't know if I'm sure it's a compliment coming from folks, but it doesn't feel like one, because your expectation was something else, clearly. Right? When my expectation of you is just, I can only put forth what my expectation I receive from you until you open your mouth, and then it may be something different. So there's just even these levels of expectations, not only within that as a parent, but also within schools as schools see our children. Having a child in school and having an educator tell you that a 75 is good, don't worry, your child's gonna be okay, even when your child doesn't think a 75 is okay. That's trauma. When I have to go up to school and have to explain and then feel the need, whether I needed to or not, to let this teacher know that I am married, that this child is not the only child, that I have 4 other children, have gone to college. Almost like you have to pump yourself up to let people know that this is not my first rodeo at this. And we have high expectations, and to sit across the table from somebody who has low expectations is traumatic. And then there's the trauma of when you don't fund schools and you sit in a school that's dank and gray. You have a library but no books, or you have books that don't represent you, or you have a curriculum that doesn't speak to your heart and your soul, and so therefore you're not paying attention, right? Like all this stuff is, I would dare say, state-sanctioned violence, because we haven't changed it, and it's been going on for hundreds of years.
All right. That's a pretty heavy video. I'm checking to see if, let's see here. I'm sad that she had this experience, but I'm so glad she made this video. Yeah, that it is an incredibly powerful video. Cheyenne, thanks for your comment. There's so much talked about in that video. Yep, your skin, your age, nationality doesn't dictate what you want for your child's education. That's right. Very powerful, Dawn said. Yeah. And it's 12:57. It's a strange feeling. Maybe what I will do is just kind of introduce us to our family and community engagement definition that we created as a community at the Department of Education. Back in 2021, we did this along with family engagement practitioners, the metro area equity leaders who are directors of equity of programs that are funded with equity funding, either from the Minnesota legislature or also including federal programs. And then families, parents across Minnesota, and also early learning folks across Minnesota helped to create this definition. Let me see here. I'm not going to put it into presentation mode because I'm not sure what will happen with which screen it will pop up on and everything, but I will read this. Family and community engagement is a process and a practice rooted in relational trust, which creates opportunities for equitable partnerships between families and school and district staff. These partnerships from birth to graduation nurture shared responsibility for students' academic and social success and honor the lived experiences, expertise, and cultural knowledge of all constituents. We need to correct that word there. And students, teachers, staff, families, and communities. So all constituents include student, teachers, staff, families, and communities. I hope that definition helps to pull apart some of the experiences and helps to address some of the experiences that we saw Zakia Ansari talking about in that video. I hope that this definition and the Minnesota model helps guide schools and school partners and families towards more equitable partnerships with each other. And I see that Cindy included the link to our family, school, and community engagement webpage. That webpage is always growing. Let me just give you a quick look at our webpage. This is it right here. This first link in the center is the model to support schools. So this opens up as a PDF, and it's something that you can download and share with your PTAs. And this is a model for schools to be implementing. So we're not telling the PTA that you need to do it this way. We're telling schools, this is what we expect of you. Because you heard from Cindy as she was presenting on the Title I programs, that, you know, this is what the statute says for Title I, and maybe it doesn't expound as much as we would like it to. This model, we hope as MDE, that it provides a little bit more meat there to the bones of the different programs that have family and community engagement in them. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of something to digest and be able to talk to schools about, right? Like, you know, MDE says that this is important. How are you doing this, right? And then the other thing, I think I just see someone, Cheyenne, looked at the rubric. Awesome, Cheyenne, you already found the rubric. This again is another tool that was created for schools. And one thing I wanted to show you on this rubric is two things came up today. We talked about different reasons that families would be included in decisions and decision making at a school. Here are the a list, and this is not the full list of all of the types of family and community engagement, types of family leadership teams that a school site or a school district might have. And we did not even include PTA on here, which we could, but PTA would be in the other area. And then the other thing that came up is, and this is a long document and would take a lot more time to talk to you all about, but the other thing that came up is evaluating family engagement. And there is a link hidden in this rubric that takes you to a lot of different surveys and things for schools to use to survey their families and their community partners, etc. But that we would definitely want to talk through. We don't necessarily talk about that to say that you need to go to your school and say, do this survey right now, because they might be doing a different survey, right? And families might be surveyed out and all of that. So it takes a lot of consideration. But I want you to know these tools are here. These are things that MDE has created for schools. And I hope that you will have us come back and connect with you all again. It's been a pleasure to be with you today. Cindy says if anyone has questions about Title I, please email her. And then we're hoping to have a breakout session at the MNPTA convention, April 20th with the MDE to continue this conversation. That would be fantastic. Thank you so much for having us, Bridget.
Thank you all for coming. And this is just such great material. I think it sparks a lot of ideas, and I hope it inspires and motivates PTAs to think differently, because like the video said, a lot of times you kind of get that historical expectation of like, well, this is what we get and here's what we do. And it's like, think outside the box, like get creative, get, crazy with who you're talking to and how you're engaging with your school, and some of those people and those programs that are existing at your school are a great way to partner with the PTA and spread that message further than what you may have normally been able to do or be doing. So thank you for joining
Thank you
and
for hosting.
talk more. Yeah. All right. Have a good afternoon.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.